Recently, we've had several questions asking, how do you buy a property in Italy? What are the steps? That's what we're going to talk about today on this edition of Our Unspoiled Italy. Before we get started, I'd just like to say I am not a real estate agent. The things I'm discussing today are my experiences in purchasing 2 properties in Italy. There are a lot of resources online. To get more information, I suggest you just Google buying a property in Italy. It's a very popular subject these days. Hopefully you found a property. We will actually do videos to cover that topic a little bit later. But for now, we're going to assume you found a property and you want to move forward with purchasing it. First thing is you're going to make an offer on the property, which you can do through your real estate agent, hopefully. It's not something I would undertake on my own. Definitely have a real estate agent or a lawyer familiar with real estate law to guide you through this process. You make an offer, and if it's accepted, then you're going to want to move to the next step, which is signing a purchase contract. You do this through a notaio, or in English, notary, which is similar to a title company here in the United States. You will then meet with the sellers or the representative, and they will have drawn up a purchase agreement. A couple of things are in this purchase agreement. One is you're going to make a down payment. It varies, but about 10% or whatever you feel like for the property. But remember this, once you've signed the compromesso, which is the purchase agreement, if you back out, you lose that down payment. So if you have any hesitation, I'd make sure you do the minimum. You don't want to lose too much. Now on the other side, the seller is being asked to verify that they've accepted an offer of a certain amount, and they're also told that if they decide to back out, they cannot change that offer, and if they back out, they can owe you up to double the amount of your down payment. So this locks them in to the price you agreed upon. At that time also, all interested parties in that property have to sign off that they're on board with the property being sold. This happened in the last purchase we did. There was a woman that we were buying from, and she had another woman who had also an interest in the property, who hadn't lived there but was going to benefit from it being sold, and she also had to sign off. So the notaio made sure that all parties who were interested were there to sign off, and we moved forward. At that point, it goes to the notary and your agent to come up with the paperwork that will show that the deed is clear, that it's an inhabitable or whatever, however they've sold you the house, whether it's a ruin or it's labeled as inhabitable, whatever, they go through to make sure all of that is correct. Now, at some point during this process, and I believe, and you should look this up, you as a purchaser need to have a codice fiscale, which is a Italian tax ID number, and it can be obtained if in Calabria, in the Scalea area. You'll end up going to Belvedere and getting the codice there. When we did that, our agent took us down there and walked us through the process, so it was fairly simple. If you're doing remote buying, you can sign a power of attorney and they can get you one there. In fact, I was looking for someone on the Italian consulate website here in the United States, and they outlined how you could do it through the local consulate, but they also mentioned that it was a very long process and you probably would be better off having it done in Italy, where it's much quicker. Basically, we drove down to Belvedere, filled out some forms, and we had our codice. It's a good number to have. You'll need it for a number of different things once you purchase the property. So once you've got that in hand, and you can't get that unless you actually have an offer on a property. So it's as soon as you make the offer, as soon as it's been accepted, you'll want to get into that. And that can be done during the time that you're going through the closing. The length of closing can vary from a month to 6 months, depending on the complexity of property issues. If it's straightforward, 30 days would be normal. Bigger properties with more people with vested interests, it gets more complex and it can take a little bit longer. It can also be done really fast. This last purchase we made, we signed the paperwork on a Tuesday, and 7 days later, on a Wednesday, we met again to close. The women who sold us the house had all their papers organized. Our realtors were able to pull together the necessary papers from their part, and we met at the notary and signed for the property. It was ours in 7 days. It was a stressful 7 days because we were in Italy. We hadn't actually planned on buying a property at that point, and scrambling to get all our money together and over was challenging, but we did it. And that was a question that I've had too, is how do you get money to Italy to pay for it? We've had two different approaches. The first apartment we bought, we brought some cash with us, which actually I don't recommend because we came with dollars and they were expecting euros, and luckily our agent was able to get them converted from dollars to euros. That was before there were a lot more options, which there are these days. This second purchase we made, which was in the end of September 2021, I had signed up with a money transfer company called Wise, W-I-S-E, Wise.com, and was able to send money from my bank to the various individuals that I needed to send money to. And Weiss did a pretty good job. They had a pretty good exchange rate. They got the money there fairly quickly. There were a couple of gotchas kind of in some moving some of that money, but it was minor. It was just a matter of a little bit longer time than I anticipated. But normally, with a lot of these sums, it's a 2-day turnaround from the time you send it to the time it gets in their account. I don't recommend using Weiss for the full purchase. If you've got a month, it's probably not too bad. We had 7 days. I went to send a larger sum of money, and they suddenly put a 6-day hold on it arriving, which basically meant that we were right up to the deadline, though we did make it, and it was a little unnerving. So the other option for sending money is a wire transfer, an international wire transfer. I did that through my bank. I have a business account, and they do wires for free if you do them online. In our first purchase, we had gone to the bank and they had showed us how to do the wire. They did it for us and she wrote down a lot of the steps and said, do it online, it's much cheaper. And with my account, they do them for free. And they do them very, very quickly, 2-day turnaround. So the bulk of our payment, I used my bank, and that went very quickly and no hassles. You'll learn, if you're from the United States, you usually know routing number and account number. There they use your IBAN number, which tells them which bank in Italy. It's like a routing number, and then your BIC number. And people who, your notary and whoever else you're sending money to, will have all that information, send it to you or email it to you, and then you just fill out the forms. Make sure they send you enough information like the address, the bank address. Any information they can give you will make it go through much smoother. Like I said, 2 transactions, we have not really had any major problems, more like timing issues. So if you've got 30 days, you've got plenty of time to work these things out. I'm just talking about our situation where it was 7 days and it was definitely stressful. You're sending money. Who are you sending money to? That's a good question. I think every transaction is slightly different. Our first purchase, we actually did it by signing a power of attorney with our realtor, and they took care of all the details because we made the offer, and then we left. And they took care of the rest of it. They filed all the papers, they signed all the papers. They told us the final amount. We just sent it to them, and that was that. In the second instance, we were there, so we were instructed to send money into different people's. You're going to be paying for the notary, and that should cover all the costs in buying, except probably for the agent's commission, and then there's the purchase price. So there are three costs. In our case, we had, like I say, the balance to the seller. We had a payment to the notary, which covered the notary and all the various tax stamps and forms that they needed to complete the purchase, and we also paid our agent, and that was it. After that, you'll have some other things you have to deal with, like starting your water, starting your electricity, and hopefully your agent can help you with that. All in all, it is not a very complicated process in general. I have heard stories that basically deal with ownership of a property and getting it cleared. That can take the most amount of time. If you're dealing with a reputable agent and you're going through one of the notaries in town, they all seem very straightforward and I've never had a problem with anybody, so I'm going to say it's fairly risk-free. But like anything, check around. It doesn't hurt to ask around if people have had experiences with the people you're going to work with. There are plenty of Facebook pages. There are plenty of some of the when we first bought, my wife got involved in some discussion groups about people who were buying property in our area, and she found out about different people, and we basically tried to deal with the ones that had the best reputations. So don't hesitate to look, ask around. Just helps your peace of mind. our first purchase, we hadn't been there, and we were a little bit unsure if everything was done correctly. So we actually had all our paperwork checked again by an independent person, and they verified that all the paperwork had been filed correctly, and we indeed own the house. As I said in the beginning, this is just an overview of buying a property. These are the things that you're going to run into no matter what you do. But every purchase is going to be slightly different. They vary. All of our purchases have been apartments, condos, and if you buy standalone property, there are some other issues. If you buy agricultural property, there are even more issues to deal with. These are things you want to talk about with a realtor before you get too involved in the process. So hopefully this helped. Please subscribe, because we're going to be doing more videos about buying property, finding property, and our experiences doing that. And if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. And like this video, if we get enough questions, we'll do a video about it so we can share with more people. So thank you for watching, and good luck with your search.